So, one last video here. It's Sammy's. I apologize, Sammy. Somehow I skipped over yours in the first video review. Uh, so, let's look through these images. You know, it was funny in the last versions of your portfolio, you had some images of a desktop, but it just kind of looked random and looked staged, but kind of staged in a very I guess thoughtful way would be the way of putting it. So as I look through these images, it feels like there's so much more thought put into the staging of these things. And I think what really comes through to me is sort of like the way these forms play off of each other. So we've got these two rectangles here, and the rectangles are kind of like mediated by these two circle and a diagonal rectangle. And then in the end, how it kind of like mirrors itself. So what's going on here is being mirrored by the headphone cord on there, which is pretty neat. Again, maybe this image I think is less excuse me there less visually interesting. Whereas there's sort of all these neat things to discover here the more you look at it. This, I mean, it's cool, but I think I like the previous one better. This one, I like now how you're starting to use the reflectivity, the mirror-like quality of the surface. Maybe we move in a little bit closer, so the lens is kind of touching the mirror, and the reflection begins right there. I love this shot. I mean, this is probably my favorite shot of the group. How you're really inserting that mirror and taking kind of a different angle on there that kind of mimics the diagonals on the mirror where the beveled edges, and it's kind of like visually confusing yet still very, very interesting with all the lines, the shapes, and the patterns. So looks really cool. I like this shot again. You've got the same similar motif in this shot, and I think I just like this shot better because I like that the edges of the books. I feel like they feel a little bit more interesting in this shot than this shot. And they're similar again, so we don't want to repeat similar motifs. Again, kind of neat how you're sort of playing off the different patterns that are going in here. I see like this circle there and that circle there and the stack squares there and the stack squares there. So that chaotic nature of that works for me. I like how you're working with colors now in this one and kind of hyper saturating these reds. That certainly works for me. Again, I like having your hands in, or your hands, or your friend's hands, or whoever that is in there. But the thing about this is it's a little bit out of focus, although I guess in some ways my eye then goes to the clock here, and it kind of feels like it's really late at night. That goes to reinforce the idea of you're procrastinating doing your work because you're busy with all these other things. So yeah, I guess as I work through this, it definitely works for me. And then here where we sort of have the pens, the stuff that's the books, is kind of almost refereeing or mediating between the video games and the books. So Sammy, I think it's a good job here. Maybe a couple of shots are repeats or repetitions. This one and this one especially. So perhaps go through it looks like you submitted 10 for this. Maybe we want to see for your final 8 to 10 images. So perhaps edit out a couple of these, and maybe if there's one or two images you feel like we can pull in, I think that would overall help everything. So that is my thoughts on yours. So look forward to seeing how you finish this up and refine this. And also, I just didn't see a artist statement for you from assignment 12. So if you haven't submitted that, please go back and make sure you write that up and submit it so we can get the grade in on that. Thanks.